Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
All right, let's try this all again. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? This time, I guess you're able to hear me a little bit better. It is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. I have no idea how we're going to deal with this in post-production. What a nightmare for the editing suite. And I don't know. We'll just we'll cut our losses and mark this as a show you'll never hear again as a rerun, I think. Unless I guess I can go back and try and make up a good 4 minutes of stuff. I'll tell you, maybe that's how we can do it. We can spend it like Blue Sky spent last evening, late at night. I understand there was one of those, oh my God, is Trump dead frenzies going on as Air Force One carrying the president presumably to Davos or possibly into the heart of the sun. Not really sure where the destination was. Had to turn around off the East Coast and come back claiming to have had electrical problems, and then it caused all sorts of weird speculation. I haven't seen Trump today, but nobody seems to be talking about it now. So, I don't know. We could just start off that way and then fill in 4 minutes and then have this as, what if this is the best show ever and we want to use it as a rerun? I don't know how we'll deal with it. Anyway, everything is now working just fine. That's good news. No real indication what the problem was. We just got a bad one this morning. I just pressed the buttons again and the buttons decided to work the second time around. So, all right, we better get started because we're behind as it is, and I don't know what this is going to sound like podcast-wise. Maybe you won't care, because who cares how long a podcast is if you're listening to it? When it's over, it's over. How I'm going to deal with, commercial breaks, well, that will just stick with the regular time. The atomic clock will tell us how to deal with those things. Greg Dworkin is standing by. I don't know whether he caught the whole frenzy last night, but we're all trying to catch up and figure out what's going on. Let's say what I have in store for you. As long as I've got everything working back again, we'll bring in with a little
sounds like Rocky.
Yeah, Rocky and Bullwinkle, a little classic cartoon. There are squirrels involved, and that's the important thing. Takes a while, too. All right. Good morning, Greg Dworkin. How are things going? How are you doing today? What's up?
Oh, we're doing fine.
Okay.
It is, oh, my goodness, it's up to 13 degrees. It was
Congratulations.
3 when I woke up, and it was 8 when I was starting to prepare for the show. But now
chilly day.
We're in double digits, which is always good. I went to make some nice hot coffee, which is nice to do on a cold day. Turned on my radio feed, which I have on my phone.
Yeah, it was working.
Yeah, but it wasn't your voice.
Oh.
What is this southern drawl? What's going on here? It's
Hello,
9:01. Where's David? And then 9:04 it kicked in. So post-production, can you just cut the first 4 minutes?
Yeah. Then you also have to cut out me saying,
I think it
works
now.
now.
And if the podcast goes 45 minutes, so what? Some people just do a half-hour one.
Yeah, that's true, and they are making a ton of money. I don't know. We need to shorten it, I guess. That might be key to it. So there's all sorts of errors to correct for us, but whatever.
Yeah. So you asked about I thought that was the craziness you was wondering if I caught. No, I didn't catch last night's frenzy because blissfully I was sleeping. But, the doctor online social media speculation is that Trump had a stroke some months ago and he's recovering, and that's really why
Sorta.
he can't stay awake, why his face droops sometimes, why he's got those IV marks on his hand all the time. We know his ankles are all swollen. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's from shaking
he's
feet.
Not a well person, but that's just physically. Mentally, he's even worse shape.
Ugh.
And he's just doing bizarre stuff. I mean, the guy's crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't even want to start with that. I want to start with one of the crazier things he did some time ago, which is deciding that advice and consent doesn't count. He just wants consent.
Yes.
And so
he doesn't even really care about that either.
All these attorneys general.
Oh, the U.S. attorneys everywhere. Yeah.
Virginia U.S. attorney. Well, I like generals, so I'm going to call them generals, even though that's not what they are. They're U.S. attorneys for various eastern, southern, northern, western, middle,
central, uptown, downtown.
Yeah. We don't
Several
know.
States have several
We're just going to
districts.
do a Hobbitville, and we're going to say, you're the Attorney General of Hobbitville, and I say you are, and what are you going to do about it? And in Virginia, your home state, and with a lot of people we love in Virginia, he appointed U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. The problem is, he didn't go through the Senate.
Yeah, you're supposed to do that.
And that made it illegal.
none of them like
and
her.
So judges found it illegal. And whenever Lindsay Halligan tried to indict somebody, the defense or the judges would say, well, you can't do that because you're not really the U.S. attorney for this district. You're not. And she fought it, and she kept it on her letterhead and kept saying she was. And then finally, here's the breaking news from AP yesterday.
That's breaking
Kyle
news,
Griffin
obviously.
says, Virginia U.S. Attorney, can't you crow like a rooster?
I have
Virginia
one.
U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, who sought indictments against Trump adversaries, is leaving her position. And Adam Klasfeld, who is a legal reporter, Klasfeld reports his own vertical now, says Halligan, quote, is leaving, end quote, after a judge found she was illegally and unconstitutionally appointed. Another judge struck her unlawful title and threatened her with disciplinary proceedings. And a third judge posted a job listing for her replacement.
Yes, I didn't get to that one yesterday, but
that was funny.
That's their role.
The Department of Justice wouldn't do it, and so I guess they're considered a minor officer or a lesser officer. I forget the exact wording, but that allows judges to do the hiring, firing, appointing stuff.
Yeah, if you've run out of eligible replacements, you've gone through the acting U.S. attorney, you might have an interim U.S. attorney, and then nothing says you're allowed to just keep doing that. Then it becomes a vacancy, and when there's nothing, when the president doesn't properly fill it, at least for U.S. attorneys, the local federal bench will do it.
I mean, and they basically said, look, this is nonsense. You can't keep running as the improperly identified
all your cases are going to
senior legal aid attorney.
Right.
I mean, you just can't make this stuff up and keep doing this. You're out. And so Adam Klasfeld said, I'm not sure the Newswire nailed the lead on this one. Oh, by the way, he says, after multiple judges pointed out that even if she had been lawfully and constitutionally appointed, that appointment lapses today.
Yes, and I think she used that as her excuse for slipping out the back door. The court said, look, you're out. We're kicking you out, and we're going to hire your replacement. I mean, I guess unless the president moves quickly and names somebody, we might, appoint them on an acting basis pending their approval by the Senate. But, this is enough is enough. We're dismissing all your cases. There's nobody enforcing the law in the Eastern District of Virginia. We can't have that. And she said, all right, well, I'm leaving, but not because you said so. I note for the record that I waited until the very end of my what even you said would be my legal authority in an interim or acting position, and now I'm leaving because of that. I'm obeying the law. It's you who are, it's really an incredible answer that she gave yesterday. We summarized some of what she had to say, but the judges, she got to the end of the rope. They're like, hey, we're not paying attention to you anymore. If you think you've indicted this guy, we're letting him go, and that's on you. Oh, well, she didn't really care about that. But anyway, this is happening everywhere. I think we made mention of there's 5 or maybe 6 of them around the country who are in the same spot.
Well, for some reason, I'm reminded of Mary Tyler Moore and Lou Grant and how they used to, interact in the Mary Tyler Moore show.
Oh, okay.
And
I'll take it.
They used to get exasperated with each other, and then finally in one of the shows, Mary said something like, well, you can't quit me, I'm fired.
Right. Oh, all right. Yeah, so a little wabbit season, duck season situation there. But yeah, this is basically it, right? You're not kicking me out. I'm leaving because I'm so lawful and law-abiding.
Right. So let's talk about trends.
All right.
There's trends to do. New polling out today. This is from Strength in Numbers, G. Elliott Morris, who not only left 538 to do his own polling site with write-ups about it, but he commissioned his own poll.
Oh,
and they
did
come
he?
out.
I thought he conducted it when you were telling me about it. But all right, he said, well, all right, he commissioned
It's
it.
a strength in numbers / Verisite poll. I don't know if he's Verisite or he hired Verisite. I really can't tell.
Maybe it is.
He calls it our polling partner. Since May 2025, monthly reports available to the public. Key trends. Trump's second-term approval trend is now disapprove 58, approve 40, so that's somewhat stable. He was approve 40, but the disapprove has gone up a point. But I think most importantly, the Democrats lead in the U.S. House popular vote, and there was a big jump from last month. It was 49-44. Now it's 51-43.
Okay.
And that's a relatively stable number, but I screenshotted some of the more interesting parts of the poll that I sent you. For example, right track, word track. Which best describes your view of the direction the country is headed? Response, things are going well in America and no major changes are needed. 10%.
All right. Well, everybody's dissatisfied about something.
Things could be better. 36%. Things are going really poorly and major disruptive changes are needed. 52.
Wow.
Don't know. So that's
don't know is
10%.
Well, I don't know.
Saying things are going well. That's a pretty low number.
Yeah. Although I'm really surprised that just to be over 50% in things are going poorly and major disruptive changes. Disruptive changes. 52% of the country opting for give me the disruptive change.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not disruptive kind of disruption lovers, aren't we?
Which is why
maybe
center
bros.
left or quote moderate end quote Democrats think the face of Tim Kaine, you in Virginia, often just poll poorly.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to be the grown-up in the room. I don't want a goddamn grown-up. I want somebody who's going to fix this goddamn thing. You know, which is the attitude of the American voting public right now.
Yeah. My goodness. Oh, well, by the way, by way of update, Trump did, in fact, make it to Davos, and he's giving his speech now, and Aaron Rupar is posting bits and pieces of it, and it's everything you hoped wouldn't happen.
Right, of course.
And somebody noting here, Maggie Astor here, whoops, I lost it. Every time something interesting happens on Blue Sky and I go to look at it, something else interesting happens and replaces it. But saying basically, she says, this is almost verbatim a quote from Otto in the movie A Fish Called Wanda. Everybody remember that? So that's not good. That was supposed to be a comedy, and this is reality. Trump is telling everybody at Davos the quote, and I guess I could play it, but I'd have to ring it up. I'll do it for you. Without us, right now, you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But how ungrateful are they now? Like, this is not going to be well received. But there you have it. You'll all be speaking German. Right. And you might anyway in the end, because that's the original text of the new Bible I'm bringing you. Mein Kampf.
Meanwhile, yesterday, Danish troops arrived in Greenland as part of a new military deployment. Because,
welcome.
Why not?
Yeah, sure.
And then Canada is planning guerrilla warfare just in case they get invaded. You know,
right.
It's all of it.
Well, Trump loves Guerrilla Channel, so that's fine.
Right. Jim Garrity, who is a conservative, writes on Twitter, remember, if you object to a 79-year-old American president threatening war against a longtime NATO ally and explicitly say it was because he didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, he has now done that.
If you object to that, there are Americans who will insist your objection is a sign of Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, it is, but you misunderstand what Trump derangement syndrome is. I'm talking about Trump's derangement.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
Well.
The fact is he's insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to finish off this G. Elliott Morris poll.
Oh, sorry.
Because it had one thing in it that I thought was really interesting, and that is, and we've seen this in other polls, generic ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what the G in G. Elliott Morris stands for.
Generic. If you would definitely or are very likely to vote, what then?
All right.
Republican Party percent 42, Democratic Party 55.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes from 6, 7, 8, which is what they consistently have been polling, to about 13 if you're talking about people who are absolutely motivated to vote.
Yeah.
And when you're losing the motivated to vote, that's actually a very significant marker.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
The
I
likely
understand why.
voter, it's a little too early to do likely voter screens based on previous behavior. So what you do is you say, well, are you going to vote for sure? Like, no kidding me, you're actually really going to do this.
Sure? Right.
And if they say yes, then you're in. So you're definitely a likely voter.
That's all it takes?
Yeah. Well, in this early version of it,
Yeah.
you'll get technical a month before the election.
Right. Second
but for
question.
right now,
Are you lying?
That's your best screen. And as Morris has looked at this a couple of months ago, what does the generic ballot and other polling this far out tell you? And the answer is it doesn't give you margins, it gives you directions. So if you have a widening Democratic lead, it doesn't really matter whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 13 points. What matters is it's a widening Democratic lead, and that does have significance.
All right.
But,
again,
I love
reminder, significance.
Polls are most accurate 100 days out.
Okay. Well,
We're not there yet.
all right. That's when they enter their period of their highest historical accuracy.
Well, because the public starts paying attention.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
This is a post Labor Day phenomenon.
Yes. Okay, that's true. Labor Day is a way off. It's
It is,
I'm looking at my watch. January. I don't have a watch.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at a watch.
It's only the end of January.
Yeah.
And Labor Day, we're talking about September.
Yeah.
And so the point here is that this is how things are setting up. This far out, the public is turning on Trump. 6 months prior to the election, minds are starting to be made up. 100 days prior to the election, you get a more accurate fix on the public in terms of trying to predict what the margin is. And then on election day, you find out what's going on. So that's the pattern. And as they like to say, you don't want to get ahead of your skis. You don't want to jump the shark. But if you do, Trump is not doing well, and it's upsetting him, and that's why he's acting so crazy.
Yeah.
Among other reasons. The other reason is he's
crazy. He was already, right. Well, one thing, he was already crazy. Now he's also stubbed his toe, so he's irritated and crazy. So, gotcha. It's interesting. I don't know what to tell you about what's happening. Oh, look, Axios has some breaking news that says Trump rules out, I guess in his speech, Trump rules out using military force to take Greenland. But I assume he'll reverse that before the speech is over, because that's one of his favorite threats.
He wants to start negotiations immediately. He wants to explain to people, I'm really smart because what I'm doing is maximal leverage to get them to negotiate. Mm-hmm. And get out of my way. You guys don't know how to make a deal. Only I know how to make a deal. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling you in advance, I'm not going to invade. I'm not that stupid because everybody around me told me that they will impeach me if I do this. And so I've decided, not because I had to, but because like I wanted to, I decided not to do this.
Yeah. Fine. Great. I mean, I don't know. You don't know whether to take him at his word. I guess it's pointless to do that at this stage of the game.
And secondly, he's an idiot. So, it's nice that he said that. It's better that he said that than something else.
Yeah.
Nobody has any idea what he's going to do.
No. All right. So anyway, the bits and pieces, the show would probably be, I don't know whether it would be more informative or funnier or just, I don't know what. But if we had just played the speech, you'll hear it. You'll all hear it later on. You'll see you'll see the clips of it. Aaron Rupar will give you the speech. Aaron Rupar for president, ladies and gentlemen.
So the title of my pundit roundup today was How to Respond to Madness, because I think we need some pointers. I'm not sure that it was explained, but hey, I'm rounding up the pundits and here's what they think.
That's the title I gave it. I didn't tell you why. Okay.
So Noah Smith writes, resistance is necessary, but it's not enough. In the face of Trump's authoritarianism, liberals need a principled movement and a plan for governance. And just points out that, look, you can't just depend upon, and of course he's speaking as a centrist when all of the resistance libs are right from the beginning and he wasn't, but his point of view is, look, you can't depend upon liberty and freedom because that's not really who America was. There are some who quietly nod their heads, he says, and grin when they see protesters beaten savagely by government thugs. relishing the thought that, quote, the left, doesn't even capitalize L, is being put in its place. There are those who smile at the notion that an invasion by the anti-white hordes of the Third World is finally turned back by our valiant boys in masks. But there are fewer of these than before. The furor over the killing of Renee Good and the ice raids in Minnesota and elsewhere hasn't died down, hasn't vanished into the bottomless pit of the news cycle like almost every other outrage during the Trump era. A recent poll found that 82% of Americans had seen the video of Good's killing, and by and large they agree with the obvious interpretation that the killing don't look like self-defense.
Yeah. That's even up a couple of points. I think we were rounding to 80 the other day. It was 79.
Well, as time goes
now
on,
it's 83,
see it.
82. Yeah. It's
polls.
widely available, hard to miss. And even if you are a Republican and would normally say, I believe whatever, they have their own version of the video now, so they'll look at that. So they will answer that I've seen it too. They may not have seen a good one or one that proves
I heard
what they
that
think.
you were saying that we were wrong. I better look at this video.
Right.
There's a ton of that.
Yeah.
But everybody has seen it. Whatever you comment to people who ask you, you've seen it and you internalize it. Those numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. America's getting increasingly fed up with Trump's immigration policy in general, and quotes Nate Silver here, on immigration, disapprove 54, approve 43. That's his roundup. ICE's name is becoming toxic with a majority of white voters, and 25% of Republicans disapproving of the agency. And his internal polls appear to show the same, according to Axios. President Trump's team recently reviewed private GOP polling that showed support for his immigration policies falling. Joe Rogan, who again remains the most popular talk show in America, unfortunately, and a prominent Trump supporter, unfortunately, in 2024 at least, is among those for whom the stormtrooper tactics have gone too far. And most Republicans are opposed to Trump's threat to seize Greenland, which is why Trump said what he did, because remember, he only governs for Republicans. And his already dismal numbers on the economy continue to deteriorate. This is all true, and it's all background for what's going on here. So perhaps the American people, bamboozled by right-wing media narratives, simply have to discover the error of their 2024 choice the hard way. That's what H.L. Mencken used to say. Americans deserve democracy, and they deserve to get it good and hard. The Democrats simply need to sit and wait for the masses to come home. But no, neither Trump nor Trumpism nor the Republican Party is collapsing. The resistance libs were completely right about Trump, but they still haven't managed to come up with a compelling alternative. That's why people get upset about abolish ICE or have this discussion. You know, ICE has to change. That is clear.
Yes.
Whether you abolish it, reform it, fund it less, or whatever, that's on the table. And, getting into a fight about the fight is stupid.
Yeah.
I don't really care, what approach you take so long as you change it.
Yeah. And I think, so you can have a big tent full of definitions of what to do about ICE. How about that? When you say reform, when you say abolish, well, that could come in several forms. So come on in. Let's talk about it that way. All right.
Combine them. You should rebolish ICE.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never really heard of that as a word, but let's invent it for use here. By the way, speaking of ICE, Trump has twice accidentally referred to Greenland as Iceland, which probably worries the people at the conference as well.
It makes Greenlanders happy because they'll probably invade their own country.
Yeah, good, right. Stay away from this one. That's fine. All right, we'll be right back. Well, 2 minutes.
Hi, everybody. This is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show in the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, the Kagro and Davos Show. I'm keeping one eye on the quotes that Aaron Rupar is posting, the clips from Trump and his maniacal speech, and the reactions from the many, many people whose names I don't think I can pronounce and that have weird diacritical marks in their surnames. It's very difficult, but he's kind of embarrassing everybody. I mean, it's so embarrassing. It's one of those cringe things that, like, the people who should be laughing in his face are having to cringe in their seats. Like, I can't believe we're sitting here and this, street corner lunatic is dressed up in a suit and everybody's saying he's the president of the United States. Yeah. And we have to listen to this. This is insane.
He's a grifter.
What are we going to do? I mean, that's one thing to be a grifter, but it's like, usually they're sharp and stealing your money with smooth talk. And now, like, why are we being grifted by this guy? I'm not sure he knows what this room is.
Yeah.
So, what can you do? Constitution. It is, in fact, the suicide pact, everyone.
So, as we like to do on the show, we jump around from things to things. I'm looking at Noah Smith's piece here, and
let me
to sum up, he's right about the fact that people are rejecting Trump. Now, his point of view, again, remember, he's a centrist, is the reason we're in this position is Biden sucked.
Oh.
And when I say Biden sucks, what I mean, Noah Smith, what I mean is that his immigration policies were awful. For 3 years, people saw him as leaving open borders. And what that did,
but that's
whether it was correct or not, whether that's properly a summary of what happened, what that did is give people the impression Biden had no control over immigration at all. And people hated that, and it's one of the reasons they voted for Trump in 2024. Therefore, if and when Democrats take back power, which it looks like they're on their way to doing, don't forget that, and don't just write it off and say, okay, we're just going to go back to what didn't work 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, 2 years ago, depending on what election you're talking about. So what he writes is the country hated the disorderly flood of quasi-legal, low-skilled immigration that Biden allowed for the first 3 years. And 1 year of hasty reversal of these policies cemented the bitter realization the first 3 years were a conscious choice. If progressives take power again and return to these permissive border policies, anti-immigration sentiment will still return, and America will once again place its trust in J.D. Vance and the race warriors of the grace replacement. And his point is, I hate that. Don't let that happen. Now, that may be more messaging than policy.
Yeah.
But something was a failure because we didn't win the 2024 election.
Well, that's true. It may not have been that, but certainly all the polls said, well, it's very much on people's minds. And, of course, now we see what has come of it. And was that what you were voting for? And some still say yes, and most say no. But
so again, to what he actually wrote, more generally, I've seen no attempt to reckon with why Americans were so mad about immigration under Biden. And I would add,
but who are you?
He's right. They were. I've seen no acknowledgement that Americans dislike the violation of the U.S. law that says you may not cross the border unless explicitly admitted under our immigration system. I've seen zero recognition of the anger over quasi-legal immigrants' use of city social services and state and local welfare benefits. I have not seen any Democrat or progressive even discuss the concern that too rapid of a flood of immigrants could change American culture in ways the nation's existing citizenry doesn't want. And on the economy, too, progressives and Democrats have opportunistically bashed Trump's performance but haven't laid out a cohesive, practicable policy for governance. Beyond tariffs, there's been no general reckoning with the flaws in the progressive economic policy that emerged out of the 2010s. I do see some of the more wonkish progressives, like Paul Krugman, acknowledge that structural budget deficits are a problem, especially now that it's Trump doing the deficit spending. And that's praiseworthy. But I haven't seen deficit reduction become a Democratic rallying cry. Again, Moderates and centrists have their point of view. And their point of view is if you don't agree with my point of view, and if you're not espousing my point of view, you're doing it wrong.
It's not even, it doesn't even rise to that level. I mean, again, I suppose you could give him backhanded credit. I haven't seen it. Well, Noah, who effing cares what you have seen and haven't seen? Did it happen or did Noah see it? Well, those may be different things. We will see. I understand where he's going with that, but of course, just sit there and flatly state it's been 0, 0, 0, 0. I bet it's not 0. And if it isn't 0, are you wrong? Would you be willing to acknowledge that? I don't know. I think no, but that's Noah Smith for you.
Well, and what's so interesting to me, again, if you're looking at Tim Kaine and Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer as being the leaders of the Democratic Party, arguably, and you're ignoring, just to throw out some names, whether it's Crockett or Tallarico in Texas, or whether it's Brian Schatz, who's an up-and-comer and probably the next majority leader, and Chris Murphy. There are younger, more dynamic Democratic leaders who don't fall into this broad brush, you're just like Biden picture.
Okay.
And to ignore that is to ignore what's really going on here. So,
it's not 0?
We're in the midst of a shift, and some people have caught on, and some people haven't. And some people have their hobby horses to ride, and some people don't. It still makes for interesting discussion. So
yes, even if the people
I
aren't
don't blame him for
nice.
bringing it up, and that's a fine point of view to have, and I have no issue with it.
Yeah.
If you bring up stuff that isn't right, we'll point it out. But you should have this discussion, and it's a whole healthier discussion than talking about how nuts Trump is.
Yeah, well,
the GOP's incapable.
Although I do like that part. And the dynamics of where the space we're using to do this discussion. You won't get published saying, well, we ought to be having this discussion, and it would be better for us if it was more frequent and concrete. Can you give me something hotter than that? Okay.
Well, how about Democrats are doing it wrong because they're not having the discussion?
There you go. That I can publish.
And that's where we're at, and that's what this piece is.
Fair enough. I'll say this. I'm glad I'm not Noah Smith. That's all. I mean, although he's doing fine, I'm sure.
I just love the title of his vertical, No Opinion. I just think it's great.
Well, that's it. And no opinion worth hearing, but okay. Gotcha. That's it. You can go around saying, I have to tell you, no opinion worth hearing. Oh, was that a backhanded compliment, or am I saying that's how I regard your column? Yes, one of the two.
Meanwhile, if you want to take a deep breath and have a palate cleanser, I have a wonderful video for you, which is all visual, so you can't play it on the air for any benefit.
But I could do it while
at the end of my pundit roundup, and it's just fun watching.
All right.
It's one of these space jockeys out on the space station doing a wet towel experiment. What happens if you have a super duper wet towel and you wring it out in zero gravity? What happens to the water? And
is
the
he
answer
inside
is
or
it
outside?
clings to the towel like a cylinder. It's really remarkable.
Ooh, weird. Okay, so I was wondering, is he wringing it out?
I'm going to put it at the very end here.
I see
you
it.
could watch it because it's good to cheer up and do this every once in a while.
Okay.
And
I guess there's...
good things still happen. There are still good people doing good things despite Trump's losing
Not
it.
Noah, but yeah. True. Right. Still things sound... Okay. Well, this can I? Does this have sound? It's just he's not speaking.
Yeah, it does have sound. He's describing what he's doing.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could play it.
You could play the sound and watch the video. It's
won't.
very short, and you can enjoy it and maybe entice people either to go to the pundit roundup or look at your own write-up later and take a peek.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna.
So here's a
play it. I'm
soaking
just
wet
curious
washcloth.
about. All right.
Get the microphone so you can hear me while I'm talking.
It's actually
Now
interesting
it's
to
floating.
see. Yeah, it's floating, and of course, it is a soaking. You can see that it's very shiny, and so therefore probably soaking wet. But the visuals already are like, wait a minute, I don't understand. Why is it not dripping? Oh, right, no gravity. So it just clings, I guess, sort of like actually static, cling to the. All right, and then
Surface tension.
yeah,
Surface tension.
there you are. Yes, right. Although there was probably a charge in it as well.
Bring it out.
Okay, so he's wringing now he wrings the towel, and again,
It's
nothing's
really wet.
dripping. It's on his hands, but a few drops float away. Yeah, now I see. All right, so he's really wrung it tight, and if you zoom in, it just forms, as you said, a cylinder of water around the
tube of water.
And his students are really enjoying this Mr. Wizard experiment here, so they all clap.
Yeah, so no gravity to draw the drops down to fall on the ground, and they don't float upward either like a balloon. It just, no reason to leave. I'm just going to stay here. Okay, wild.
Right.
To say the least. So they should do that with, I don't know, over Trump's head. But in Davos, the water will just fall on. But that's fine because he loves water pressure. It's a very big issue for him. And I think he made mention of it just the other day, too. I thought I saw another Aaron Rupar clip. I guess before he left for Davos, he sat down for an interview with somebody. And they asked him about his 2026 agenda with Congress. And, of course, he doesn't know anything or have any. And so he went to his stump speech from 2016, which is 10 years ago.
Right. Well, when you can't remember yesterday, sometimes you remember 10 years ago.
That works. And so, so his agenda...
The other thing was, listen, as long as I'm on the topic of Denmark and Norway, which are the same thing,
right,
and we're talking about Greenland and Iceland, which are the same thing, Iceland has a lot of waterfalls, and to me, that's the way our shower heads should work. Thank you very much for inviting me to Davos. I said something very relevant. You should all applaud.
Yes. Now, that would have been a great poll. But I think all this was a sit-down, I think, before he left, maybe with, one of the right-wing yada yada.
Or the New York Times. Same thing.
True. But so he sat down and he's asked, what's your 2026 agenda? And he says, he says, I did a lot of executive orders and they were great. They were beautiful, fantastic executive orders, and we did so many things, and like the water coming out of the sink. You turn on the water, nothing comes out. You're in the shower and you can't wash your hair because this is literally his complaints from 10 years ago. And then he kind of realizes, I was being asked about Congress. Oh, so I would like to see them act in Congress and make a lot of those things permanent. They're permanent now because I ordered them, but I would like to see Congress also do them. And so they say in Washington. So you're saying you would like to see your executive orders codified by Congress. Codified, yes, right, that's the word. Sure, they should be codified them because they're very good. And also, straws are not going to be paper anymore. That's your Congress
agenda. Could have been the
agenda.
Katie Pavlich News Nation interview, possibly.
Yeah, sure.
Sent it over from the Daily Beast, their coverage
Let
of
me
it.
look and see
Trump
the picture.
Rambling about showers and sinks, it's called.
That's the one.
That's it.
Yeah, okay, right. President cited changing showerhead water pressure as one of the highlights of his second term.
Yeah, there's actually a video of that included in the article. I'm not all that interested, but hey, it's your show. You can play it if you want.
Yeah, I might not. I think you get the idea. The point was only that they asked the President of the United States, leader of the free world, what's your agenda for 2026? Well, I don't like the straws. And how about those showers? That's all he could recall from 10 years ago. Nothing else. And of course, all he can sit there and do is say, well, I fixed it. So in 2026, I'd like to copy the fix from one piece of paper to another.
Right. So I'm going to give you a couple of 4, maybe, pieces which caught my eye because I just thought they were interesting.
All right. One was Caroline Levitt.
Caroline Levitt. That's Margaret Sullivan talking about news media.
Okay.
Second one is Radley Balco, who does
yeah, I saw that one this morning. I got it.
I've covered police abuse for 20 years. What ICE is doing is different.
It is true.
Your friend and mine, Cliff Schechter, has a vertical called Blue Amp.
Yes.
And with permission, he posted a piece by a fellow named Dan Perry. And Dan Perry is writing about unfit, unhinged, unchecked, talking about Trump. What's interesting is that Dan Perry is
Katy Perry's
the
brother.
former Middle East, Africa, and Europe editor for the AP. And so that perspective was brought to the table. I thought that was interesting. And then finally, the fourth piece that caught my eye, and we'll get to whatever ones we get to. You'll get to the ones I don't get to if you want to, or get to your own if you don't. This is from a vertical called Flux by George Michael. Interesting perspective here. Non-white influencers are becoming the cultural leaders of American fascism.
Yes.
Kanye West. Basically based on a common perspective. What do black influencers have in common with Nazis sometimes, unfortunately? Anti-Semitism.
Well, you got to find common ground somewhere. It's nice to see people coming together.
Historically, there's interesting stuff in here, like George Rockwell, leader of the American Nazi Party, in his Nazi uniform with his Nazi armband.
Yes.
Swastika, listening to Malcolm X speak in a Nation of Islam meeting where he was invited.
Let's see if we can't cooperate.
He was invited to speak there.
Oh my, I did not realize that.
Yeah, I mean, stuff, so all of interest, all of a piece. And those are all topics, I think, that are worthwhile thinking about as Trump rambles on about not invading Denmark and not invading Norway and not invading Iceland. And, oh, by the way, what was it, Greenland? Oh, yeah, that too.
Right.
Well, we won't invade them either.
Okay, fine.
Somebody observed the stock market hasn't crashed because people think this is another Taco Trump thing. And based on the speech today, they're probably right.
Yeah, maybe. There was a big dip yesterday, but I guess it doesn't count as a crash.
Yeah, it was a 2% dip, but why didn't it crash further? Because they don't really believe it. That's why.
Well, that's the investment theory. The taco thing was originally a stock trading strategy.
Yeah.
So I guess they've been right. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say that.
Let's talk Margaret Sullivan, one of my favorite writers.
Sure.
That's the one with Caroline Levitt
Yuck.
Picture. With democracy in free fall, the media must finally wake up, plus a piece of heartening news. I sometimes feel like I'm living in a nightmare as I watch the twin disasters unfolding in American democracy and American media. I know I'm not alone. You know the democracy part. The author and journalist Jonathan Alter recently asked former Republican campaign strategist Stuart Stevens whether America is in a slide toward autocracy or are we in there? And Stevens said, no, we're already there. When you have the Vice President of the United States saying it's perfectly legal for masked men with badges to shoot anybody they want in the face, when you have an army of masked men chasing brown people across the country with no consequences, when Trump can decide to remove a head of state without any discussion with Congress, we have an autocratic president and an autocratic party. And on the media side, Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos has stayed shamefully silent after the FBI seized computers and searched a Washington Post reporter's home. The staff, the editors, the publisher, not Bezos, but whoever's like marginally in charge of...
And didn't he hire a British tabloid dude?
Yeah. Bezos is the owner.
Yeah. I get all the money. I didn't do anything.
Retired. Somebody's been hired/retired to be facially the publisher. But anyway, they've spoken out, but Bezos hasn't.
Okay. Well,
CBS News, of course, under editor Barry Weiss, the network appears focused on pleasing Trump. When Press Secretary Caroline Levitt relayed Trump's demand that CBS News air all of its interview, no editing, or we'll sue your ass off, CBS did just that. And then there was CBS Evening News' Tony DeCopel amicably agreeing, not at all, after Senator Fetterman opined it's not an absurd idea for the U.S. to try to acquire Greenland. There were no questions from DeCopel about the illegality, trying to take it by force, European allied backlash. And Mehdi Hassan reviewed this and said this is what state TV looks like. And even in the New York Times, generally functioning at a high level of journalism, is so intent on its vaunted concept of independence, it falls prey to normalizing the dangerously abnormal. Above the fold on the Sunday front page, remember she used to work for the Times, sat a story about a tiny town in Minnesota where some of the Republican regulars think Renee Good had asked for trouble. I don't know why these stories, based on conversations in a rural diner or bar, should be considered so marvelously significant.
Yeah, I have my theory about that, but it's I mean, it explains it, but it's still just as counterproductive as she says it is.
Right.
Which is to say, in New York, to their readership, this is like a zoo visitation. They've gone to look at the zoo animals in the rural diners. Look at these people who still think this is good. So unusual.
So what can news outlets do better? And she says a lot. Mark Jacob is an ex-Chicago Trib editor.
Right.
Suggestions in his newsletter, headline, How to Build a Radically Truthful News Outlet. This former Chicago Trib editor advises, 1, never allowing a lie to go out on the platform without challenging it. Hello, Tony DeCopel.
Okay.
Even if that means taking Trump on a tape delay. Ending interviews with newsmakers if they won't stop lying and banning them from future appearances and calling out rival news outlets that engage in disinformation. In a note to me, Jacob explained it's not enough for good journalists to do quality work. If the goal is an informed public, the part of the mission must be to defeat the liars so that facts prevail. This requires aggressive tactics. Maybe major news organizations aren't going to do this far. It's hard to imagine the AP, which is well-led, focused on truth, to start calling out rival news outlets, but we do need radical change. Remember, you center-left centrists, moderates, it's not enough to just go back to the way things were being done in 2012. That's not what people want. I would like to see top editors, she writes, and news directors get in their newsroom leadership and really focus on how well they're fulfilling journalism's accountability and public service mission. Far less emphasis on what we don't want to look biased about, and far more on how well are we doing our jobs at getting across the truth.
That would be nice.
Right. So, 10 months out from Election Day, it's clear Democrats are in a strong position to win control of the House this November, wrote Cook editor Aaron Covey. It's Cook Political Report. A lot could happen before that. This, of course, includes a Supreme Court decision on voting rights, and we are expecting any day now the tariff decision from the Supreme Court. So a lot of stuff going on, and all have been important. Bradley Balco's piece also, I think important. This isn't police misconduct. This is deliberate, stuff. You can label the stuff whatever it is you want.
I will label it. I'm not certain what I want to label it yet, but okay. It's a permission structure now to do so. I just need to give it some thought.
Right. Anyway, that's my summary.
Okay, very good. Let me add, since you're on your way out, you need to know what's happening in the news. But
yes,
political science professor Elizabeth Saunders at Columbia, reacting to the news reporting from Davos. Let's see who she's referring to. Steve Herman here, executive director of the Jordan Center for Journalism Advocacy and Innovation and assistant professor of practice at Ole Miss, is, I guess, following the speech, and says, but the quotes that he's giving are along the lines of the people writing that Trump is saying he was ruling out the use of force. But she says that a closer reading of this is, no, he is threatening to use force. Don't say he's not threatening to use force. He's just doing it in backhanded fashion, I guess, and saying things like, well, what's the quote here? You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember. Which
I was trying to remember why I knew Steve Herman. He's the Voice of America guy. He must have just recently retired.
I see. All right. He's a news guy on Blue Sky. But okay, yeah, I guess he's keeping a running commentary, but it's an important distinction that political science professors watching the excerpts coming out of Davos are saying, for whatever reason, the news outlets are running with Trump rules out use of force. And I guess maybe he must have said, I'm doing it, I'm ruling out the use of force. And then the rest of the speech is, but if you give us a problem, I can't be held responsible for what happens if the United States Armed Forces were to kill you. Oh, you're the commander-in-chief of it.
I'm not saying
but I'm saying don't hold me responsible.
Invade. I'm just saying it'd be a shame if something happened to a nice little country. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's a good point. You should come away reading it that way. And, that dovetails nicely with the responsibilities of the press. Don't make the headline say he rules out the use of force if he's telling you he's not ruling out the use of force. Because he's doing it in mobster speak, you're now doing this is plausible deniability for the use of force. So we'll just say, it's plausible that he denied it. Don't print that he denied it. You can say Trump employs mobster techniques to deny responsibility for what everybody knows he's going to do. But they're not up to that task, and they need everyone. It's interesting. Every once in a while, they fall back on we need a really headlines have to be short and pithy, so we'll distill it down to this. And then when they really are like, God, if we say that, Trump's going to kill us. Then you get the long, nuanced things with colons and quotes and reports say in the headline. They can abandon it when it's saving him. They're not doing well. You're right about that. All right. Well, yes, we are near the top of the hour. Here's how the New York Times
headline reads, Trump says he won't use force over Greenland, but issues warning.
What kind of warning do you think that's supposed to be?
Unclear.
Yeah. Right. Certainly unclear. All right. Well, I will say one other thing that I noticed that was of interest overnight. I'm taking his word for it on the translation because I don't speak Danish, but we could check it. It's probably pretty easy to do. This from Christoph Harrig, who says, who's Christoph? Associate professor at the Royal Danish Defense College, and so therefore I think probably an authority in Danish translation. He captures the front page of one of the local papers and says, "Good morning from Denmark," where even major newspapers are now asking whether the U.S. Arctic warfare soldiers, remember the detachment from Alaska, are meant to be deployed to Greenland. In other words, the question that they're putting in what looks like in Danish here is they are beginning to think Trump will taco, and that it's also, though, very alarming to them just in terms of like the United States being the leader of the free world. These troops, it does ask in the headline, are these guys going to Greenland or Minneapolis? And I guess it's that much of a concern. And over in Denmark, they're willing to say, yeah, this might be a domestic deployment for them, which I'm sure they're glad that they're not going to Greenland. But how, what happened to our partner in democracy here? They're invading Minneapolis. It's a little scary.
So I want to give you just a quick strength in numbers, G. Elliott Morris update, more from his poll. This is in support of what Noah Smith, I think, was trying to say.
All right.
Congressional trust on issues, net number based on party. Healthcare. People trust congressional Democrats on healthcare, plus 23.
All right.
Government funding of social programs, plus 17 Democrats. These are all Democrat advantages. Education, plus 17. Mm-hmm. Trade with other countries, plus 5. Prices, inflation, plus 7. That's important. Jobs, the economy, plus 3. Foreign policy, plus 1. Border security, Republicans, plus 18. Deportations, Republicans, plus 7. Crime and public safety, Republicans, plus 6. So what Noah Smith is reflecting is what the public reflects. The daddy party still gets more points for security and crime than the mommy party, to cite a 10-year-old or more characterization that only fits momentarily. But in this particular case, that's what people think. And Noah Smith is saying, be aware of those numbers and act accordingly.
I can see that.
Yes, healthcare and the economy is going to be more important than border security right now in terms of what's a top 10 issue, without question. Prices and inflation, 30% saying it's most important problem. Border security, 3, as an example. But keep in mind that Republicans have the advantage and don't blow it.
Okay.
Do something about it. Govern better.
Yeah.
Lower that number. Make it so the Democrats have less of a trailing number. Plus 18 is too high.
Yeah.
All right, I can accept that.
Okay, yeah, sure. We might have to sane wash Noah Smith every once in a while, I guess. But it's a possible thing to do, and he's not quite as far gone as Donald Trump. So I think we can acknowledge that. Yeah, why be behind and remain behind on any issue? Where you see it, say, let's change that. Why not be up by 6 on everything? Okay,
yeah. Yep.
Fair enough. Come back tomorrow. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm writing a note to myself about something real fun that we got to go do for show prep later on, although I guess I probably won't. I got a week to do it because I won't be able to use it until then. And I lost my pencil. I'm like, note to self, but no note-making materials. But I found a highlighter, so I've got the note. And I won't miss it. It's in Dayglow Green. All right, where were we on bringing you all of this fun stuff? I don't even know what's happening. But I guess I will go over to, I opened up Aaron Rupar's feed here, and if I refresh it, I just want to see like where we are here. Is he still ripping clips from Trump, or whether that's over with? Let's see. We'll give you some clips, although maybe what I want to be doing here is I can grab his latest thing. I mean, do we want to hear? I mean, some of these clips are a little longer than we normally would play, but we could just give you the rundown, I guess, rather than actually play you the video. So let's see if we can find it again. Let's see. Trump saying, no nation is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the U.S. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I don't know how much greater they think you are, but I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting. Yeah, nothing like going to the World Economic Forum and insulting the world. But what a fun guy he is. So you get the idea of what he's telling people. There's another one here. Trump is now confusing Greenland and Iceland. And so we heard about that one. World War I, they lost 100 million people. It actually ended World War I. A lot of people don't know. The Spanish flu in World War I ended the war. A lot of people don't know that because it doesn't really, line up factually. Anyway, there's more. You can see this is just, I guess they've moved into the panel discussion/interview section of this. I think he did a stand-up speech, and now they're asking him questions, and he's blowing the questions. So, all right. What else? It's worse than you probably could imagine, but I guess we can't just stand here and read you. I'm just warning you that all day long will be clips of crazy, and you're going to kind of have to live with that one. All right, let's see. Let's circle back, if we can, to the Lindsay Halligan story. Thankfully, I think I got you up to date just in time yesterday, telling you what was going on with Lindsay Halligan, and then by the evening she was out. So here's the Washington Post reporting on that, and then there's a bit of free-flowing commentary out there that we can add. Lindsay Halligan out as U.S. Attorney following pressure from judges. Greg pretty much summarized the whole thing for you accurately, but let's see if we can't parse any more fun nuance out of this. One federal judge in Virginia sought applications for her replacement. Another called her use of the U.S. Attorney title a charade. So this was yesterday's reporting, again, in the Washington Post, written by Steve Thompson, Salvador Rizzo, and Jeremy Roebuck. Lindsay Halligan, a Trump administration lawyer who was named head of a key U.S. attorney's office in Virginia. They don't even really know. Like, you can't just use the regular title because it was weird and it changed 6 times. And there's no point in pretending she was the real thing. Anyway, let's see. She was named head of a key U.S. attorney's office in Virginia last year with instructions to seek criminal charges against President Donald Trump's perceived political adversaries. Left her post at the Justice Department on Tuesday. Well, she did leave it. Did she leave of her own volition? Was she kicked out? Open to interpretation, I guess. Halligan's departure followed a pair of extraordinary moves by 2 federal judges, there were others involved, who issued court orders hours earlier saying they intended to replace Halligan at the helm of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, and threatening disciplinary sanctions for any government lawyer who continued to refer to her as U.S. Attorney in legal filings. Remember, you got to tell the truth in your legal filings. And the truth is, she's not the U.S. Attorney. The separate actions by Chief Judge M. Hannah Lauck, is it Lauck? L-A-U-C-K. I don't think we got her name on the record yesterday, but there it is. And Judge David J. Novak, whose name we did mention, who were nominated by President Barack Obama and Trump, respectively. That is to say, David Novak is a Trump appointee, and he's the one who made the news with this yesterday, signaled a breaking point for the federal bench in the Eastern District of Virginia months after Halligan was disqualified from serving as U.S. Attorney in the high-profile office. The orders intensified a battle playing out nationwide between the executive and judicial branches over how the nation's 93 U.S. attorneys can be appointed for temporary terms without Senate confirmation. And if I can just open up the calculator here real quick, I think we said that we're up to 6 of these. Out of the 93, that's 6.5% of all of U.S. attorneys in office were highly questionable in terms of the legality of their continuing to serve in this role. Anyway, so as we said, the orders intensified this battle playing out over how U.S. attorneys can be appointed for temporary terms without Senate confirmation, and they had posed obstacles for Halligan, who had no prosecutorial experience before she was installed in the job, as she attempted to carry out Trump's directions to levy criminal charges against 2 of his perceived political foes. Here we're talking about former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Halligan, in a statement, accused the district's federal judges, including one appointed by Trump, who was singling her out, accused the district's federal judges of a campaign to pressure her to leave after the court ruling declaring her appointment was invalid. And by the way, once there's a court ruling declaring that your appointment is invalid, I think you're actually entitled to wage a pressure campaign to get her to leave, right? You're not the U.S. attorney. And the response from Lindsay Halligan, well, first of all, the response was, yes, I am. And even if you're right and you think I'm not, so what? And, all they're doing is the common sense thing of, well, so if the court says you're not this particular officer of the court, by the way, but you're a DOJ employee, but if you're not in that job and your answer is, yeah, and they say to you, so you should not say you're in it, you should actually leave it and let us get somebody into the job who can say they are legally entitled to that job. Well, that's just a campaign to pressure me to leave. Yeah, you don't belong there. You should leave. I mean, I just said the first part. You're not entitled to this office. You don't belong in this office. You don't hold this office. Yeah. So that she interprets as a pressure campaign to get her to leave, and it is one. Anyway, she said that effort had diverted time and resources from public safety responsibilities. It has not. Judges don't have direct public safety responsibilities. They can only sit for the cases the U.S. Attorney's Office brings them. I mean, in terms of criminal prosecution. Like, we don't charge people, you do. And you're not actually a person who's allowed to bring those charges. It would be wise if you moved on to putting someone in that office who is legally entitled to bring those charges. But yeah, essentially she's just reversing the whole thing. This is really your fault. The reason nobody's being charged is you're being picky about who is and isn't legally entitled to bring charges against people. All right, back to the article. Abby Lowell, an attorney for James, who helped argue the case challenging Halligan's appointment last year, said her departure, quote, marks another failure in the Trump administration's illegal attempts to install political loyalists as prosecutors and served as a, quote, fitting end to her brief and troubled tenure in office. I think it's not all that fitting. It's an okay end, but, prison would be a good end, but I don't know. I mean, nobody's ready to bring charges against her for impersonating a federal officer, but that is what she did. Who would bring those charges? Well, unfortunately, probably the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. So good luck getting it to happen. Anyway, it was unclear Tuesday night who would be in charge of the U.S. Attorney's Office going forward. The Justice Department this month dismissed the first assistant U.S. Attorney, Robert K. McBride. We heard about that yesterday. who would have automatically assumed the top job under federal law. A Justice Department spokesperson did not immediately respond to requests for comment, but I think that essentially they saw it coming. The correct operation of federal law here would have been, if not Lindsay Halligan, then who? Robert McBride. All right, then Robert McBride is fired, and now who follows automatically? Now we don't know. Now it's a big question mark. All right, that's what we were looking for. If it's a question mark, couldn't it be Lindsay Halligan then? No, that it can't be. All right, fine. We tried. Halligan is the third Trump-appointed U.S. attorney picked to leave their post in the face of a growing body of court rulings that have deemed their appointments illegal. I guess there's still more of them out there who were supposed to leave their post who haven't. Alina Habba, a former Trump lawyer he picked to lead the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, resigned last month after a months-long legal battle over whether she was lawfully serving in that role. While the Justice Department continues to appeal the decision, Habba stepped down and moved to another role in the Justice Department. Julianne Murray, another contested pick, resigned her post as a U.S. attorney in Delaware days afterward. I don't even think that we've added that one to the tally, unless that was the one that we realized, we learned about yesterday and said, I didn't think we knew about that, and I've forgotten again? I don't think so, though. Anyway, before her appointment, she had served as the state's Republican Party chairwoman. That's basically the qualification there, I guess. Attorney General Pam Bondi praised Halligan for her service in a statement on Tuesday. The quote here, while we feel her absence, or we will feel her absence keenly, we haven't had a chance to feel her absence yet, but we will later feel it keenly, we are confident that she will continue to serve her country in other ways. I'm not as confident. The circumstances that led to this outcome are deeply misguided. We are living in a time when a democratically elected president's ability to staff key law enforcement positions faces serious obstacles. They don't, actually. I mean, unless you think a Republican majority Senate where you can't filibuster executive appointments is a major serious obstacle. Why haven't you named someone who's actually, qualified for the job to do it? Because you would win confirmation, and probably pretty quickly. So I don't really know why but they need to be able to cast blame for this. Several judges had suggested for weeks that Halligan should resign and sharply questioned her continued use of the U.S. attorney title after an out-of-district judge, Cameron McGowan Curry, ruled in late November that the Trump administration had used an unlawful maneuver to install Halligan. But anyway, anybody coming to this article for the first time, or coming to the story for the first time, would say, well, why does an out-of-district judge make this determination? And maybe maybe that's part of the reason why Pam Bondi and Halligan think that they didn't, that their conclusion is wrong. She's an out-of-district judge. But remember, they had to get an out-of-district judge because the in-district judges have an interest in the outcome of this determination. They are going to be the ones working with the person who is lawfully in the position of U.S. attorney or interim U.S. attorney or acting U.S. attorney or whatever it may be. And of course, they have a role in selecting someone to fill that role if the president can't or won't do it. So they said, we'll get an out-of-district judge so that we have someone fair who doesn't have this conflict of interest in deciding it. And someone who was fair and without a conflict of interest said, yeah, you're screwing this up royally. There's no reason why she should be allowed to continue in this. It's illegal. That's why. Okay. Just in case you haven't heard that, or maybe you just wanted to, show that you did know it. And I helped you say, yeah, that's the reason. Okay. So where were we with this one? Right. On Tuesday, Lauk, that's the chief judge, I think, right, directed the court's clerk to publish the U.S. attorney job posting in local newspapers, asking anyone interested in applying to apply by February 10th. The position of United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia is vacant, reads a public notice posted on the court's website Tuesday. Lauk's order marked an escalation, signaling active efforts by the judges to appoint the district's top federal prosecutor under a federal law that gives them the power to do so after an interim U.S. attorney has been in office for 120 days. It was followed hours later with another order from Novak, who raised the threat of disciplinary action for anyone who described Halligan as the U.S. attorney in legal filings. No matter all of her machinations, Ms. Halligan has no legal basis to represent to this court that she holds the position, and any such representation going forward can only be described as a false statement made in direct defiance of valid court orders, Novak wrote. In short, this charade of Ms. Halligan masquerading as the United States Attorney for this district in direct defiance of binding court orders must come to an end. The Trump administration has appealed Curry's ruling, but it never requested a stay, so the ruling disqualifying Halligan remained in effect. They forgot that they could do that because the people in that office aren't, actual lawyers or prosecutors. Anyway, nonetheless, she continued to represent herself as the U.S. attorney in court filings. This month, Novak ordered Halligan to explain why she continued to use the title, suggesting she may be making false or misleading statements. The Justice Department responded defiantly to that order last week, arguing that Curry's ruling was not binding and that Novak had no authority to strike Halligan's name from the signature block of the Justice Department's court filings. No authority in a courtroom. What are you doing? The response, which accused Novak, and remember, they appointed Novak, of making rudimentary legal errors and missing elementary legal principles, was written in a derisive tone, unusual for a government lawyer addressing a federal judge. They're supposed to realize that they're repeat players in front of these courts, but I guess they don't care. Novak said in response that Halligan's rhetoric was beneath the court's dignity and more suitable for cable news, which may be her next stop. She said Halligan's continued use of the U.S. attorney title after Curry's ruling was an affront to the legal system. The court cannot tolerate such obstinance because doing so would undermine the very essence of the rule of law, he wrote in Tuesday's order. If the court were to allow Ms. Halligan and the Department of Justice to pick and choose which orders they will follow, the same would have to be true for other litigants, and our system of justice would crumble. Halligan's nomination for a full term as U.S. attorney is pending in the Senate, and it was unclear Tuesday whether the White House also intended to withdraw it. Even if they don't, the nomination is unlikely to move forward because it lacks support from Virginia's two senators, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, both Democrats, who have emphasized that the Eastern District of Virginia handles a complex portfolio of cases dealing with national security, leaks of classified information, and international terrorism. In disqualifying Halligan last fall, Curry ruled that Halligan was never legally appointed to the position of interim U.S. attorney because the Trump administration had already named someone else to that role, Halligan's predecessor, Eric Siebert, who served a full 120-day term from January to May 2025. The district judges then unanimously extended Siebert in the role at the Justice Department's request, Novak wrote in his order. But Siebert was forced out in September after declining to seek charges against Comey and James. Career prosecutors had recommended against pursuing the two cases because of insufficient evidence of wrongdoing. Trump then named Halligan, who promptly secured those indictments against Comey on allegations that he made false statements to Congress, and against James, who was accused of mortgage fraud. Curry tossed both indictments after finding that Halligan was unlawfully appointed, and Halligan's own 120-day appointment concluded Tuesday, and she used that as the excuse. I'm leaving because I'm the only one following the law around here, and my 120 days are up. That's why I'm out of here. And I don't think the judges even contest that, although it doesn't really matter very much. And she wasn't saying that she was the interim U.S. attorney. She was saying she was the actual U.S. attorney, which she's not, even if she was obeying the law, governing her 120-day appointment. She should be saying interim U.S. attorney, and she wasn't. Just put that in and you'd be okay. Anyway, although, then I guess that solves one problem. You wouldn't be okay, of course, because the court had already held Siebert has used up your one interim U.S. attorney chit. And what do you do if your interim U.S. attorney still hasn't been confirmed by the Senate in this time? Well, you do what they did. The court said, you know what, we'll recognize him, we'll extend his term. We agree. If it now falls to us to fill the position, we fill it with Siebert. At your request, that's fine. were willing to do that. If you fire him, then you're out of luck. Now you don't have anybody in there unless you get the agreement of the federal bench to name someone else to waive the rule that would ordinarily say, yeah, you don't get two interims. We'll look the other way on that if you just cultivate trust and agreement with us. You won't do it? We won't look the other way. Now what do you have? You got a vacancy. Sorry, that's what you got. And how is it going to get filled? We'll fill it. All right, last paragraph, I think. Oh, no, there's more. Justice Department lawyers maintain that the statute allows for back-to-back interim appointments, but in addition to Curry, at least 5 other federal judges have rejected that argument while ruling on challenges to other Trump U.S. attorney appointees. So it's the DOJ's belief, because it's convenient for them, that, oh, no, there's nothing that says you can't appoint more than one interim U.S. attorney to the same job. But 5 courts say, yes, there is. Well, I don't know. In each case, the judges have said that if the Attorney General could legally name a string of interim appointees, then there'd be no need for an administration to put a nominee up for a Senate vote. Yeah. Judges across the country have been cautious in exercising their authority to name replacements themselves for the president's picks. When New Jersey's federal judges named a veteran federal prosecutor to replace Haba last summer, the Justice Department fired their pick within hours and undertook legal maneuvers aimed at keeping Haba in the role. Delaware's chief federal judge began soliciting applications this fall to replace Murray in Delaware, but Murray resigned her post in December before a potential standoff with the administration could come to a head. The chief federal judge in Seattle issued an order last week soliciting applications to potentially appoint a new acting U.S. attorney there. Yes, an acting. When the interim appointment of Trump's current pick expires next month. They're trying to get out ahead of the problem. That's wise, probably, given how many problems they've had elsewhere. Judges in other districts have refused to reappoint Trump's interim U.S. attorney picks, but declined to choose replacements. And they really can't afford to just decline that anymore. Although sometimes in those other offices, they may still have deputies in place who can succeed to the position by statute. All right. Now, I believe I also parked an open Blue Sky post here from Southpaw, NYC Southpaw, who's been commenting on the situation. Let's see. He grabs Mark Elias's report here on the Halligan, or his comment here on Halligan from his Democracy Docket publication. Mark Elias saying Lindsey Halligan, the loyalist President Donald Trump handpicked to prosecute his political enemies last year, has stepped down as the top federal prosecutor in Eastern Virginia more than a month after she was formally disqualified for the position. Southpaw commenting, I feel like it's a little bit important to be pedantic about this. Halligan didn't step down from the U.S. attorney position because she had never stepped up into it. She was not properly appointed. After a series of judicial decisions pointing this out, she has abandoned her charade of occupying the job. What's the conflict here? Again, just to clarify, and I feel like we've been over this, but it might not. We stopped for comments along the way so many times that it might not be all that clear. So Siebert was properly appointed as interim U.S. attorney, served 120 days. His term ended. That would ordinarily leave the job vacant. There may or may not have been a deputy to step into that role at that point. But what the Justice Department asked was, would the federal judges of the Eastern District of Virginia be willing to extend Siebert's term of office despite the fact that the 120 days have run? And they said, yeah, he's doing a pretty good job. We trust him. He's apparently got the support of the president because the president and the attorney general were the ones, or I guess the attorney general names the interim U.S. attorney, but presumably, with the president's agreement, right? You're not going to have a fight over that one. So you like Siebert. We're fine with Siebert. We extended his term. Then at some point later, Trump gets mad with Siebert, fires Siebert, and then they go back to the court and they say, well, now what? Who's going to take over the job now. At that point, the court should have said, well, he was at this point you fired him, he was only serving at our pleasure as a favor to you. You asked us to extend his role as interim U.S. attorney. Then you fired him. So now it's vacant, and they should have acted and said, we'll name the replacement. But I guess they got preempted by Bondi at Trump's direction naming Halligan, saying, all right, well, we lost our current interim U.S. attorney. We'll name another interim U.S. attorney. And that was the point at which the court said, no, you've had your 120 days plus more by our agreement. But we didn't agree to Lindsay Halligan. So the answer is no, she's not interim U.S. attorney, and you should stop saying so. And they just basically dug in their heels and said, she is interim U.S. attorney. And no, she's not. And we'll have hearings about it. And we'll tell you what we need you to do about this. And we'll tell you to vacate it. And essentially, they stood there. They stood there with their heels dug in for 120 days, did the Trump DOJ. And then on the 120th day, as if to pretend that this was proof of their point, that no, the judges that say we can't appoint a second interim U.S. attorney are wrong. We're right. And they just yelled at each other for 120 days. And then Halligan left and said it wasn't the fact that we were ever wrong. The judges were wrong. I felt an obligation to serve out my 120 days being wrong. And the reason I left is my 120 days are up. Not that the judges or any of the judges around the country who've said I've never been legally appointed to this job were right. I'll never admit that. That's actually where we are. So yes, it's worth being pedantic about it. It doesn't clarify the situation in the eyes of the Trump administration, but I guess there's no doing that. You're never going to be able to convince them that they were wrong about anything, and that seems to be their MO with everything. You never admit any kind of error ever, and you deny. Okay, so there you go. That's, I guess, where we're sitting with this. There's a little bit more on the subject, and maybe we'll visit it after the break. Mark Joseph Stern, also someone we turn to for a lot of legal analysis, marveling at the language being used by the judges in declaring her position vacant. We'll get to that after the break. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I said there was more. Mark Joseph Stern has a collection of excerpts from the orders issued by Novak and others. He starts off here by responding to, I guess, someone else who's doing pretty much the same thing, Adam Klasfeld. Adam Klasfeld, editor-in-chief of allrisenews.com. So clearly covering the federal judiciary. And he starts this out with a breaking news bulletin back, from yesterday at 1:30 p.m. A federal judge strikes the words United States Attorney from Lindsay Halligan's signature and warns that he will refer her to disciplinary proceedings if she persists in calling herself one. And there's a screen grab of this order. Let's see. The court recognizes that Mrs. Halligan lacks the prosecutorial experience that has long been the norm for those nominated to the position of United States Attorney in this district. Consequently, and in light of her inexperience, the court grants Ms. Halligan the benefit of the doubt and refrains from referring her for further investigation and disciplinary action regarding her misrepresentations to the court at this time. Generous of them. However, this memorandum order provides notice that should Ms. Halligan persist in ignoring Judge Curry's orders and this memorandum order in any matter before the undersigned, that's me, the court will initiate disciplinary proceedings against Ms. Halligan and any other signatory to an offending pleading pursuant to Federal Rule of Disciplinary Enforcement 5A. That's Roman numeral 5A, so it looks like V. And VA together, hey, Eastern District of Virginia, that's not what they mean. It looks funny, but there it is. Let the clerk file a copy of this order electronically and notify all counsel of record, the chief judge, and all United States district judges, magistrate judges, and bankruptcy judges of this court, Judge Curry, and all members of the Richmond Division of the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia with current CMECF registrations. The court further orders that Ms. Halligan shall provide a copy of this memorandum order to the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General since they appear as signatories in her response. It is so ordered. Signed, David J. Novak, United States District Judge. Well, that is interesting. Now the commentary from Mark Joseph Stern, who senior writer at Slate covering the courts and the law. Of course, he says, this is actually an understatement. The response was totally unhinged, but I'm glad Judge Novak is highlighting the Justice Department's venomous rhetoric. He grabs a section of the order here saying Ms. Halligan's response, in which she was joined by both the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, as you heard from Novak's order, contains a level of vitriol more appropriate for a cable news talk show and falls far beneath the level of advocacy expected from litigants in this court, particularly the Department of Justice. That is what I think Stern is saying is an understatement. It was really nuttier than that gives away. The court will not engage in a similar tit-for-tat and will instead analyze the few points that Ms. Halligan offers to justify her continued identification of her position as United States Attorney before the court. Ultimately, the court concludes for the reasons that follow, and we won't bother with all of those, this is just the rhetoric, that Ms. Halligan's continued identification of herself as the United States Attorney for this district ignores a binding court order that may not continue. Otherwise, Ms. Halligan and anyone who joins her on a pleading containing the improper moniker subjects themselves to potential disciplinary action in this court pursuant to the court's local rules. So that goes for you, Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, if you continue to insist on pretending she's the U.S. Attorney. Mark next goes to a quote from Judge Novak, saying Ms. Halligan appears to share the current administration's unhealthy obsession with Jack Smith. The screen grab here comes in a footnote. Ms. Halligan also asserts that former special counsel Jack Smith continued to use his title after his appointment was found to be invalid. Ms. Halligan's references to former special counsel Jack Smith do not merit serious consideration given the inappropriate context. Ms. Halligan appears to share the current administration's unhealthy obsession with the former special counsel, but Mr. Smith's decision to leave intact his signature block following a court order asserting the illegality of his appointment, remember that one, lacks legal significance here. As such, the court will not be diverted from addressing the issues related to the lawfulness of Ms. Halligan's assertions. I guess no further exposition on that one, but You'll recall that Trump's lawyers tried to get Jack Smith's appointment invalidated, and I guess only Aileen Cannon was willing to even entertain that proposition. Anyway, there's more that he grabs here. In a thread, Mark Joseph Stern continues in calling out this part here. The court finds it inconceivable that the Department of Justice, which holds a duty to faithfully execute the laws of the United States, even those with which it may have disagreement, that they would repeatedly ignore court orders while simultaneously prosecuting citizens for breaking the law. And I guess there's a wider quote here, but I suppose that's the key part. that they highlight. So rather than highlighting it like physically on the screenshot, he calls out the best part. Judge Novak declines to refer Halligan for disciplinary action in light of her inexperience, but warns that if she continues to call herself U.S. Attorney after this, he'll initiate disciplinary proceedings. And then again, no matter her machinations, Ms. Halligan has no legal basis to represent to this court that she holds the position of U.S. Attorney. The charade of Ms. Halligan masquerading as the U.S. Attorney for this district in direct defiance of binding court orders must come to an end. It didn't look good for her, generally speaking. But there you go. That, I think, can be the end of our coverage of Lindsay Halligan's sojourn as purported U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. We'll see where she lands next and what title they try to grant her. I don't think it's going to work, but we'll take a wait-and-see attitude on this. All right. Let's see. Among the other things that I should bring to your attention, let me mention, at least because our good friend and supporter Lambs End Benz. Oh, you also get she's also Lambs End Benz when she's scuba diving. Unfortunately, you really have to wait to come up from depth. You can't do it all at once. But on land, Lambs End Benz. But longtime supporter and listener to the show points out a story that we really need to make mention of. And I guess, well, more than make mention of it, we should read it. I mean, it might not necessarily be where I would have gone stream of consciousness wise, but it's important. And one of our listeners says so. And we need to acknowledge that. I keep, after all, begging you to send me clips of yourself telling the story or reading the newspaper article that you think is important, or failing that. I don't mean failing. Like, you haven't failed in doing that. You don't want to do it this way. Here, just look at this story. That's enough. It happens all the time. I value the contribution. What am I doing? Just get to it. It's from Popular Information, Judd Legum. And Judd thinks it's important too. So let's do it. ICE has stopped paying for detainee medical treatment. Yes, it's an enormously important story. And I shouldn't be waiting any longer to get to it. And so I'll just take the suggestion that we should do it now. ICE halted payments in October. And I guess we didn't even know about it. And the situation will persist for at least several more months. That probably one of the unfortunate functions of moving the federal government. Even if you decide you want to do something and they haven't decided they want to do it, it would take several months to get it done. What's going on here? During the second Trump administration, the population of migrants held at U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facilities, that's ICE, has exploded from below 40,000 in January 2025 to over 73,000 today, so nearly double. Under the law, ICE is required, of course, because we're not savages, or we're not supposed to be savages, but now we are. ICE is required to provide necessary medical care for this population. But that President Stephen Miller's complaint is, we're wasting resources. They're coming to this country and we're paying for their medical care. Whatever happened to America First? Oh, you mean you're going to give Americans access to medical care? No, not that. Nobody. While ICE employs some of its own medical staff, I guess for this purpose, it often uses third-party providers. ICE's Buffalo Federal Detention Facility, for example, houses over 500 detainees and has no doctor or dentist on staff. ICE, however, has not paid any third-party providers for medical care there since October 3rd, 2025, or maybe anywhere. It's not clear to me whether it's just Buffalo that they have now. And last week, ICE posted a notice on an obscure government website announcing it will not begin processing such claims until at least April 30th, 2026. Until then, medical providers are instructed, quote, to hold all claims submissions. So even if you do some work there, they're not going to pay you for it. ICE's failure to pay its bills for months has caused some medical providers to deny services to ICE detainees. An administration source who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the press and were afraid to get killed, I guess, told Popular Information. In other cases, detainees have allegedly been denied essential medical care by ICE as well. There's a link to that. ICE was unable to respond to a request for comment in time for publication, and probably would have refused anyway. In lawsuits, numerous ICE detainees with severe illnesses allege that they cannot obtain treatment. For example, Vieira Reyes, a detainee being held at ICE's California City detention facility, had symptoms and test results that suggest he has prostate cancer. But despite often being in excruciating pain, Reyes cannot obtain a biopsy. All of his requests to see a urologist have been ignored. Without a biopsy, Reyes has no formal diagnosis and cannot begin chemotherapy or take other steps to slow the cancer's progression. Reyes was one of 7 ICE detainees to sue over inhumane conditions at the California City facility. How did this health crisis inside ICE detention facilities begin? Beginning in 2002, long way back. The Department of Veterans Affairs played a small but critical role in providing essential medical care to ICE detainees. When an ICE detainee needed medication or treatment that the ICE facility could not directly provide, the VA Financial Services Center processed reimbursements claims from pharmacies and third-party medical providers. ICE paid the VA for this service. No resources were diverted from veterans. Beginning in 2023, however, the VA's role in administering these claims from ICE was subject to criticism by Republican officials. So that's how it happened. Republicans criticized it. So the end. And, of course, right-wing media outlets. Senator Tommy Tuberville, who's exposed himself once again as a vicious racist and anti-Muslim bigot in the last couple of days. But that, I guess it plays, or he thinks it plays. But Tommy Tuberville, who introduced legislation to end this practice, that is, of the VA, who have the medical personnel to take care of this, providing that medical care and then billing ICE for it, he's introduced legislation to end that practice, falsely claiming that Biden was, quote, robbing veterans to pay off illegals. Nope. But it doesn't stop him from saying it. After Trump's election, criticism of the VA's role quieted down until on September 30th, 2025, the Center to Advance Security in America, or CASA, a small right-wing nonprofit, filed a lawsuit. The CASA lawsuit sought to compel the Trump administration to respond to a public records request for documents regarding the VA's role in administering medical claims from ICE. According to government documents first reported by Popular Information, the VA abruptly and instantly terminated its agreement with ICE on October 3rd. That cancellation, according to the documents, left ICE with no mechanism to provide prescribed medication and unable to pay for medically necessary off-site care. Among the services ICE said it could not provide were dialysis, prenatal care, oncology, and chemotherapy. The documents were posted to sam.gov on November 12th as part of ICE's effort to hire a private contractor to process medical claims in place of the VA. The situation was described by ICE as an absolute emergency that needed to be resolved immediately to prevent any further medical complications or loss of life. And here is a screenshot of that posting, I guess. More than 3 months later, the situation is not resolved and is expected to last until the end of April, if not longer. The process of replacing the VA, according to the administration source, has proven very complex. Accenture, one of the companies that won the ICE contract to replace the VA, says it will not be ready to process claims until at least April 30th, even if Accenture, or Accenture perhaps, there's only one C. Even if Accenture meets that target date, which is not a guarantee, claims filed on the first day may not be paid until May 30th. In the meantime, the situation with ICE detainees has grown so dire that the VA is now working to potentially bring its claims processing back online temporarily, the administration source said. Internal administration data obtained by Popular Information reveals a massive gap in essential medical treatment for ICE detainees. Let me just pause and say it's interesting. In other words, the situation is so bad that even the freaks and bigots and monsters of the Trump administration are saying, well, maybe we should undo our immediate termination of this thing and take care of some of these people. Otherwise, we're going to have a pile of bodies by the time Accentra moves in and starts paying the doctors again. So they're actually considering doing this. Anyway, internal administration data obtained by Popular Information reveals a massive gap in essential medical treatment for ICE detainees. The data shows that in 2024, the VA processed $246.42 million in medical claims related to the treatment of ICE detainees by third parties. In 2025, despite an 82.5% increase in the daily detained population, the VA processed just $157.2 million in claims. That's a drop of about $100 million from 2024. The data also includes medical reimbursements from a much smaller number of detainees held by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Forces. Assuming the medical needs of a typical ICE detainee remain constant, the data suggests nearly a $300 million gap between needed care from third-party providers and what ICE actually paid. This gap is a combination of unpaid bills since October 3rd and ICE detainees who are simply being denied necessary medical treatment. An investigation by Senator John Ossoff of Georgia identified 85 credible reports of medical neglect, including cases that reportedly led to life-threatening injuries and complications among ICE detainees between January 20th, the beginning of Trump's term last year, and August 5th of last year. The incidents included a heart attack after days of untreated chest pain, complications from untreated diabetes, and denial of necessary medications and associated complications. After October 3rd, medical care for ICE detainees almost certainly became much worse, and it is not likely to improve anytime soon. So, if you essentially, like Stephen Miller, intend for all of these people to die, whether in ICE custody or in some other country, well, why would you provide medical care? And bigots like Tommy Tuberville make it continue by demagoguing the issue and pretending that you're stealing health care from veterans, which, by the way, A, you're not, and B, it's not like you're doing a good job providing medical care to veterans, so I would stop bragging about that if I were you. All right. Other things that deserve to be on the record here. Man, there's a lot. You know what we didn't get to? It's Wednesday, and we forgot to have Greg mention that means that there were special elections yesterday. And there were some, and I found a report, and I specifically went around looking. So I have something from The Hill just to let you know. I can't believe we're still doing these things, but it's true. And the Democrats won them, so that's good. The Hill reports that the Dems won another Virginia state legislature special election. Why? Because the incumbent in that job has now joined the administration of Governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, in this case, replacing Garrett McGuire, Garrett McGuire will be replacing State Delegate Mark Sickles, who has been tapped to be Governor Abigail Spanberger's Secretary of Finance in the 17th House District. And so, good news there. I think it was largely expected. Overwhelmingly Democratic voting population there. But just pointing out that trend is continuing. And I guess while we're on that subject, we should also throw out there, I'm going to scroll and see if I can't find it for you, and it's not immediately obvious where it is, but there it is. Also, another thing suggested here, and who sent me this one? I didn't save my notes on who sent me this suggestion, so sorry if I missed you on the credit here, but Spanberger's executive order, another one of their first day executive orders, gives the new governor the option to end the relationship between ICE and Virginia State Police. And now that I think about it, this probably came from Scott in text, and that's why the connection note is not in my Instapaper. But I think the other day we mentioned that one of her day one executive orders, I don't see it coming from Scott here either. So I don't know. Could have been my brother Mark, possibly. But many people probably would have noticed. We were talking about her first day executive actions changing the composition of the Board of Visitors at UVA, and that was good news. And this, too, another day one reversal, giving the governor the option to end the relationship between ICE and the Virginia State Police. Brad Kuttner wrote this up for Radio IQ at WVTF, Virginia's public radio. And the story is what the headline says. Governor Abigail Spanberger was inaugurated Saturday, and with it issued a series of day one executive orders. Among them is one giving her the option to end a relationship initiated by the former governor, Glenn Youngkin, between the Virginia State Police and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. According to numbers obtained by the Virginian pilot Kate Seltzer, as of November, ICE had detained over 6,200 people since Governor Youngkin entered into what they call the 287G agreement with the federal agency last year. That agreement deputizes Virginia State Police to assist ICE in its roundup of residents. Youngkin said their target was violent illegals, but ICE data suggests about 70% of those detained in Virginia's 2 ICE facilities have no criminal record. Same as all over the place. And Saturday, shortly after her inauguration, Governor Spanberger signed an order that gives her the option, even though it doesn't do it directly, the option to remove Virginia State Police from this agreement, according to a gubernatorial spokesperson. Spanberger had promised to nix the order on the campaign trail. When asked if or when she expects the relationship between the state and federal agencies to end, the spokesperson declined to comment. Spanberger did mention immigration as part of her inauguration day speech, saying, "In Virginia, our hard-working, law-abiding immigrant neighbors will know that when we say we'll focus on security and safety of all our neighbors, we mean them too," Spanberger said. In a statement sent after the speech, Virginia's House Minority Leader Terry Kilgore said Spanberger's withdrawal from the agreement would be reckless. Do we care to give the quote about that one, or do we just say, whatever? No. Senate Minority Leader Ryan McDougal echoed Kilgore's concerns. Republicans are against this. Luis Aguilar with the immigrant rights group CASA, although I suspect that we just mentioned CASA as a right-wing group. Here it is listed as an immigrant rights group, and I suspect that we might be talking about 2 different CASAs. Well, Luis Aguilar told Radio IQ he was seeing pictures, though unverified, of alleged ICE enforcement stretching from Henrico County up to Woodbridge and beyond. I never have gotten the right pronunciation of the county there, even though it surrounds Richmond. Henrico or Henrico? I've never been entirely clear on that one. And it's right here in Virginia. And I've been there, and I still don't know it. Anyway, among confirmed ICE activity was raids in Alexandria. He said it left locals terrified, and he hopes Spanberger will end that relationship soon. Things aren't safer because ICE is going door to door, Aguilar said. When a president chooses to utilize authoritarian tactics and scapegoats a specific community, we have to say no. I agree. We ought to be saying no. So hopefully that does come soon, but it ain't done yet. But we're on watch for that one. And, it's not that I don't expect that she will deliver on that one. It's just, I'm just saying, she ain't done it yet. All right. Let's see. A few other important notes I should scroll around for and make sure you are aware of. And I had something in particular in mind. And But what it was, I have no idea any longer. Oh, yeah, well, I was thinking we should read Radley Balco's thing, but we might have to wait for that one for tomorrow. But you get the idea, and at least we made mention of it, and we can parse through it tomorrow. But, yeah, it may be at this point that it doesn't advance the ball any, but I'm sure it was well written. All right, let's see. Other fun things that we might be able to fit in just a minute or so. Let me grab this one. Right. I forgot. One comment about the thing we discussed yesterday. We did mention the Board of Peace. It did occur to me, I think, after the show that, of course, it costs $1 billion to get a so-called permanent seat on this thing, but you can join for free for 3 years. And it just occurred to me afterwards, like 3 years, isn't that like what's left in Trump's term? Like, I don't know if there's going to be one of these boards of peace things, whatever it might be, after 3 years from now, if he survives and serves his entire term and isn't removed from office. So just saying, the smart play here is take the free trial and I'll get back to you on the $1 billion if there still is a board of peace in 3 years. Anyway, another thing I grabbed from Blue Sky that I thought was of some interest internationally. Strictly Christo is the name of the account from which I've grabbed it. Strictly Christo, Christo. No information in the bio about who that is and what they do with their time normally, but this I thought was of some interest. A French language television clip here with a helpful translation, which I can only hope is accurate, in which a French judge explains how Trump sent people from the U.S. Embassy to try to intimidate her during Marine Le Pen's trial for embezzlement, presumably being held before this judge, and details how he has used similar fascistic tactics to intimidate other judges around the world who rule against his alt-right friends. It's quite worrisome, actually, and I can kind of read you the transcript as it goes along, but I better get started because it's not a short clip. I would like to tell you what happened in my office, she says, at the request of the U.S. Embassy in Paris. And they're not translating it quickly enough for me. But I think, well, we'll have to, I guess, depend on the quick and dirty translation. Strictly Christo continues by saying, Mafia type walks up to Paris, kicks over a model of the Eiffel Tower, and says, gosh, France, it sure would be unfortunate if something happens to your security as a nation. If only you would just let our alt-right friends take power and run everything, there'd be no need for concern. So yeah, apparently 2 Trump administration officials from the embassy show up in her chambers, supposedly to discuss human rights, she says, as she often does with diplomats from France's allies. But it very quickly turned the conversation to Marine Le Pen's trial, the idea being to find with me or others elements indicating this was purely a political trial. And to stop her from running for president. That's what they allege was the purpose of the trial, and they wanted to hear that from the judge. The aim was to find proof of interference, apparently. I was so taken aback by what was said, by the tone, even if it was very courteous, that I did something I never do when I meet with foreign diplomats, and that is I notified the French Foreign Office of what was said in this conversation. I felt it was my duty to do so. I know it was taken seriously. When was this? It was the end of May, I guess, of last year, May 28th, 2025. And here I have to stop because, well, she's got a lot to say, but the translation is lagging a little bit behind, so I can't read it as fast as I would like to. So instead, I'll read you what Justice Putnam has on tap for today's show. Trump is falling into a perfectly laid trap from Congressman Massey and Khanna to expose his dark past. Oh, that sounds good. Hey, Epstein files. Let's bring that back into the news. But yet, wait, there's more.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Oh no, in a surprise move, MAGA racists have filed a federal lawsuit against the Los Angeles school policy that it claims discriminates against white students. I can't believe it. And after substantial pressure from MAGA cattlemen, the MAGA Bureau of Land Management revoked American Prairie's Montana bison grazing leases. Yet more garbage. See you tomorrow.